All right, it is now 2 p.m. and we will get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our MMIP Compassion Fatigue Training. My name is Aaliyah Smith Gomez, and I'm a project coordinator with the Research and Public Health Division at NCUI. Joining me from the NCUI team are Yvonne Ito, the program manager, Rachel Deo, communications associate, and Amaya Fellows, a NCUI intern. We are honored to have you all here. We kindly ask that you place your name, organization, tribal affiliation, and title into the chat box. In addition, we welcome any feedback you would like to provide about our training experience in your survey, which will be posted in the chat box. As shown on the agenda, we will begin with a session overview and housekeeping, followed by an introduction of our presenter, and then the content delivery. We will end the session with a Q&A and adjourn promptly at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For those of you that are unfamiliar with NCUI, here's a little background. The National Council of Urban Indian Health, also known as NCUI, is the national nonprofit organization devoted to the support and development of quality, accessible, and culturally competent health and public health services for American Indians and Alaska Natives living in urban areas. NCUI is the only national representative of the 41 Title V urban Indian organizations under the Indian Health Service and the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act. NCUI strives to improve the health of over 70% of the AIAN population that lives in urban areas, supported by quality, accessible healthcare centers. As we dive into our session, here are a few things to keep in mind. This session is being recorded. All mics have been muted. Questions can be typed into the chat box. A Q&A will follow at the end of the session. And please note that the QR code at the bottom of the slide can be scanned with your phone to access our feedback survey. CEs will be administered for this training and is jointly provided by NCUI and CARDIA Services. CARDIA is an approved provider of nursing continuing professional development by the Montana Nurses Association and accredited approver with distinction by the American Nurses Credentialing Centers Commission on Accreditation. This activity has been planned and implemented in accordance with the accreditation requirements and policies of the California Medical Association through the joint providership of CARDIA and NCUI. CARDIA is accredited by the CMA to provide continuing medical education for physicians. CARDIA designates this live training for a maximum of 2 AMA PRA Category 1 credits on July 28, 2023. Physicians should claim credit commensurate with the extent of their participation in the activity. Upon successful completion of this activity, 2 contact hours will be awarded. Successful completion of this continuing education activity includes the following: attending the entire CE activity, completing the online evaluation, and submitting an online CE request. Your certificate will be sent via email. If you have any questions about this CE activity, please contact Fiona Morrison Fleming at CARDIA. We know that this topic is highly sensitive and may bring up concerns for you that could be triggering. We encourage you to put yourself first and take care of your mental health in any way necessary. If you need to leave, feel free to do so. I will now introduce our presenter for this training. Yvonne Ito currently serves as the program manager in the Research and Public Health Division at NCUI. She has been with NCUI since 2021 and has served in various roles within her community pertaining to MMIP prevention and awareness. I will now pass it over to Yvonne to start her training. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope that you will find that this hour-and-a-half training will be beneficial to you and your clients' lives, but more so for you personally. We know that there's a cost to caring. Professionals who listen to clients' stories every day, listening to their pain, listening to their suffering, we have the tendency to absorb that pain sometimes. And this is how we end up losing our sense of self to the clients that we serve. So compassion fatigue talks about the overstressing of caring too much, basically. Well, not caring too much, but caring in a situation where we need to remember to take care of ourselves. The objectives that we're going to learn today is to identify and define 4 compassion fatigue symptoms. We're going to articulate the causes of compassion fatigue. We're going to see if you can identify and assess compassion fatigue symptoms in yourself and in your coworkers. Learning how to understand resiliency, and that resiliency development is the key to fighting off compassion fatigue and stress. We're going to talk about 2 skills to combat compassion fatigue, and we're going to practice them. And then we're going to problem solve solutions for recovering from or dealing with acute compassion fatigue. So first of all, this class is very interactive. You're all on mute right now, but once we start answering questions, please feel free to come off mute and share, or you can type in the chat. We have Aaliyah is monitoring the chat box, so if you want to answer questions in the chat, that's fine too, but I urge you to come off mic and participate in the class. It'll make it a lot more interesting for us all as we share this Friday afternoon. So when we talk about compassion fatigue, we talk about a set of negative consequences that could be experienced by caregivers and by professionals. And I'm wondering, how many of you can relate to these? This is exhaustion, frustration, depression, and fear. Can we have a show of hands or thumbs up, or who experiences this in your job? Does anybody have exhaustion in today's world? Do I see a lot of hands? That's good. Well, it's not good, but it's good that you're participating. Okay, so these are negative consequences that are commonly experienced by caregivers and by and workers, just as ourselves, social service workers, experience this on a daily basis. The risk factors, recognizing risk factors is important too, like in the intensity in your work setting. You know, some work settings are very intense, some are pretty laid back. You know, with the work that we all do, there's a lot of family interactions, there's client interactions. You know, we sometimes can struggle with those risk factors, primarily because maybe we don't have enough resources to meet our clients' needs, or our workload has doubled since the pandemic. You know, there's lots of different reasons for recognizing these risk factors. Another risk factor is if we perceive that we don't get managerial support, it's important that we have a good team building in our jobs. But sometimes we feel that we might not have managerial support, and that could be because we don't want to go ask our supervisor for help, because we perceive that as being vulnerable. If I need to tell my supervisor that I'm struggling, that's a risk factor within myself, because I don't want to disclose that information. Another is I could be a junior provider. You know, we have there's a lot of staff changes that occur in our business, and if I'm joining a team that's an experienced team, I can be intimidated by my limited experience and not knowing the coping strategies that my coworkers have. So all of these are risk factors for compassion fatigue. And I'm wondering if anybody has any feedback, or if there's hands, if anybody has a question, you can raise your hand. Stephanie, I see that your hand is up. Do you have a question, or was that from a minute ago?
That was from a minute ago. So
Okay, no worries, no worries. I just want to make sure I stay up into the chat. Sometimes it's hard to monitor the chat as well. So let's talk about stress for a minute. I'm sure you all can relate to having stress, right? Everybody has stress in their life at some point in time. And stress can be easily agitated, frustrated, moody. It could have a sense of feeling overwhelmed, like I'm losing control over my situation, like my workload, or I need to take control over the situation. Stress also means that I have a hard time relaxing and quieting my mind. And it could also mean that, you know, there could be times that as a worker, I feel that I'm lonely because I feel isolated, or I feel depressed, and I just don't know how to handle my stress in my life. So how does stress show up in your lives? Does somebody want to share? How do you know that you have stress? You can either type it in chat or come off mute. Does anybody want to share that?
As it like pertains to work, I guess like the way I can tell that I'm stressed is like when I quote unquote bring that work home and like I can't stop thinking about like what happened the day prior or the week prior to.
Good. So do you think most of your stress, Shelby, is related with work, or do you have family stress too, or does it trickle over?
I think that it's mostly related to work, but it definitely trickles over to like personal like stressors that I experience too.
How do you recognize it coming in your life before it gets here, or do you?
I think the way I recognize it is just like I'm not really doing much to take care of myself, or like I kind of make excuses like, oh, I don't have time to do that. Like that's when I start recognizing it.
Right. That's good. And I have one more question for you before I go on to somebody else. How do you handle your stress? Are you pretty good at handling it?
Not necessarily as good as I would want to be, but what I really try to do is like stick to a routine of just like keeping myself busy, but keeping myself busy with the things that like are not related to work or anything like that. Like I like to bead a lot, so I really try to tap into that.
Beading is a wonderful way to relieve stress.
Yep.
Okay, does anybody else want to share? I see somebody writing exhausted, get upset easy, not taking care of myself, taking it home. Okay, those are common. Someone else wrote low mood, sleep disruptions. So for those of you who are sharing, oh, someone wrote when I forget appointments or meetings or events. That's a really good one. That definitely affects your job. Being exhausted, but very easily when I get into the building. Okay. How many people go to work exhausted? Anybody go to work exhausted? I see some thumbs up. Yeah, I mean, it can kind of give you definitely a hint that you're stressful if you're walking into work at 8 o'clock in the morning and you're already stressed. So, so we're going to teach you what to do during those times and how to recognize the stress when you come. And we'll have some common responses here in just a few minutes. So, like we said, almost all caregivers and social service professionals experience stress. So another thing that we need to talk about is burnout. Burnout is a lot more serious than stress, because burnout is like when you're under stress, you still come to work, you still perform, you're still trying to get your job done, you're going home, interacting with your family. All of those things are important, but when you're at burnout, you have a harder time to do those things. You know, you have a harder time to participate in the activities you would if you were just stressed out, because burnout, you're basically on vapors. Your body is exhausted, your mind's exhausted, you don't even know how you get to work in the morning. You can have anxiety. For somebody who's not a anxious person, you can get you start to demonstrate anxiety, detachment, low mood, difficulty concentrating, like keeping on task. It's easy to get tired. We start getting headaches. We start sleeping. Our sleep is disruptive. When our sleep is disruptive, our whole body is just starts to go into different mood swings and anxiety. So we want to make sure that we want to prevent burnout at all times. There's this gas gauge here. I'm wondering how many of you can relate to this gas gauge, feeling like your tank is empty and you don't have any more gas to give to get to work. So compassion fatigue shows that you've just been giving and giving and giving. We can become emotionally tired. We find ourselves not empathizing with our clients as much as we normally do. We can feel powerless if we know that our clients are sitting in front of us, relying on us to help them. And if we have nothing else to give, what can we do for our clients if we have nothing else to give? So we start to feel overwhelming and exhausted by the demands of our work. It seems like post-pandemic, our clients are just as needy, that the needs are just as high as ever, and we can start to feel emotionally detached and just disconnected from our job. And that trickles over to in our personal life. If you're running on vapors during the daytime and you're so stressed out, when you come home, you might not want to cook dinner, you might not want to interact with your family because you're so emotionally drained. And we want to, and you know, that's concerning. So we want to make sure we teach you how to self-care. The compassion fatigue is beatable, and it's just the primary fixer-upper basically is self-care. We need to practice self-care. With compassion fatigue, moral injury becomes very, very strong feelings of guilt because I'm not being able to do my job properly, or I want to do more for my job, or I wish I had more resources to give to my clients, but I just don't. There's just no resources to give. Let me backtrack here for a second. Out of a show of hands, how many people are still isolating at home or working from home, or is everybody back in the office? Can you put in the chat whether or not you're, Stephanie, you have your hand up, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm working from home still.
Working from home? Okay, so I see a combination of both. Hybrid, does hybrid means a couple days at home and a couple days at the office? Is that a safe interpretation? In the office, okay. Okay, so probably a little, looks like it's a little half and half. So, okay, so we're going to talk about common responses. Common responses to compassion fatigue. When we talk about common responses, emotional issues, we talk about the development of being irritable, easily frustrated, angry, sensitive. We can become teary-eyed. You know, if I'm overwhelmed and I am, you know, somebody calls out my name and I'm in a position where I'm overwhelmed, I might not be in trouble, but I might get teary-eyed because I'm just so overwhelmed and I feel hopelessness in my job. Cognitive thinking issues, we have trouble concentrating, difficulty tracking details, trouble with organization. Maybe I'm a person who stays organized at all times, and then all of a sudden my coworkers are noticing that I'm not organized, or I'm having trouble focusing, or I'm forgetting meetings or whatever. So those are triggers to let people know, let myself know, but also let other people know that I might need some help here soon. You know, I might need a intervention, or I might need somebody to talk to. Behavior health issues. I might be someone who's extremely friendly all the time, and then all of a sudden I'm becoming aggressive. Substance use, if I'm having sleeping problems, then I might start taking Benadryl to start sleeping, and then I might have to go to the doctor and get some sleeping medication in order to sleep. So those are all symptoms and responses for compassion fatigue. Shutting down, I might just want to come to work, stay to myself, even though I'm a friendly person. I might want to just stay to myself and not talk to people in hopes that I could hurry up and get through the day faster. And if I just sit at my desk and withdraw and isolate, I might not have to worry so much, is what my thinking. But of course, we all know that is a delusion. That just makes matters worse. With all of these common responses for emotional, cognitive, and behavioral can lead to physical issues like headaches, stomach aches, trouble sleeping, snacking, muscle tension. It's like during the pandemic, it seemed like there were two different kinds of folks. One person who totally revamped their life and lost a lot of weight and got healthy and went to the gym and was doing everything. And then there were people who were snacking and gaining weight. So it just seems like physical issues affect people totally different. But these are things that are, you know, the common responses in it. So I'm wondering, would anybody like to come off and share and tell us, what is your experience? Our next question is, we're going to talk about, what do common responses look like in real life? So we'll go back to the slide that talks about the common responses so that you can see that. But if somebody would please like to share on how you can relate to these common responses, and what have you been doing about it, or have you even noticed it? Justin, did you have your hand up?
I didn't, but I can talk about it if
Okay.
you would like to. Because I went through quite a bit of different stuff with all that when I was working in the emergency department, and I really did not really recognize it until I had an opportunity to step away, and really was dreading going back to work. And at that point, I just kind of had to decide to, you know, make a change in my life. It's been a really good change, but I would say I was not very self-aware of all of this stuff, even though it was kind of going on. Like, I'm looking at it, I'm like ticking boxes, but
Right.
at the time I didn't have that self-awareness.
Do you think now, looking back, you didn't have the self-awareness because you didn't know, or you didn't recognize because those feelings were status quo?
Oh, yeah, no, I think it's more of the latter, that you just kind of get used to a bad day being a normal day, and then it's like a cycle of that and the bar just can get lower and lower and lower, and you don't
Right.
really realize.
Right, and you notice with status quo, the thing that happens is that our tolerance level keeps increasing. You know, it keeps increasing every day. You coming back, it's the same thing. It's just you know, same day, different channel. You know what you say, and you notice that you're not self-aware because this is status quo. This is the way things are, and excuse me. So now are you aware?
I think, yeah, a lot more aware. I have, yeah,
What-
different.
What did it, I don't mean to throw you under the bus or anything, but
That's
you
okay.
know, but so what made you finally recognize it and what did you do about it? You said you made a change.
I did. I moved from a busy emergency department to a prevention job with an awesome community at the Kansas City Indian Center. So
Awesome.
it's been amazing. And, you know, now I'm working to help people, you know, way upstream from where I was at before. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And how's your stress level now?
Oh, stress is definitely still there, but it's not
Yeah.
the burnout stuff that you were mentioning, and I think that it's well managed right now, at least.
Right. I don't think in these days with the, you know, with post-pandemic and we're still dealing with the pandemic, but with the post-pandemic, I don't think in today's world there's a way to avoid stress. I mean, if you can avoid stress, I'd like to know your secrets because you have a big marketing skill that you could market. But I don't think it's possible to stay away from stress. But I do think it's possible to stay away from burnout if you recognize the stress and you self-care. So with all of this, the key component is self-care. You have to diligently, intentionally work on self-care. So, you know, we definitely want that message to come across as self-care, self-care, self-care. Would anybody else like to share what the common response is, how they can relate to the common responses? And thank you, Justin, for participating.
Hi, yes, my name is Vanessa Diaz, and I would say that I get irritable and even in my body, just like shaky, and I start to have really vivid dreams. And I know growing up, I like try to be very responsive to those dreams because they often lead to my medicine of like, get back. You know, you're not in the right space. You know, your ancestors are smacking you in the side of the head, telling you to stop it and to really just be more aware of how to minimize my responses to things. And, you know, I'll do the whole like, oh, I just need a nap. I just need a 20-minute nap, a 30-minute nap after sleeping a full, you know, 8 hours at nighttime. Or when I get to bed, I'm not somebody who will fuss for very long. I'll go to bed, I'm pretty tired. And then I notice in my moments of really high stress, I'll sit and think, and I'll just be like, okay, no, go back to meditating or go back to this. And then my mind will wander and it'll start to kind of go through the stresses of the day or what have you. And then my children often, unfortunately, are the brunt of that frustration because they want me to be, you know, they want me to be, they need me to be, you know, going to football games or taking here, just simply having a conversation with them. And one of the ways that I've minimized some of that is that I've said to like, I want to hear what you have to say, but like, give me like 10 minutes to like, take a moment, take a breath. I've done that in the past, but I'm not so great at it. And being a single mom, it's kind of like one of those things where I try to catch it before it happens, but I'll get curt, like, can you pick up your bowl? It's like, am I the only one cleaning here? Instead of like guilt tripping them, and just instead of saying like, I'm really stressed and I just need you all to like kind of help me out for the next little bit and maintain. So I will do that, but I probably already yelled for like 2 days straight. And then I'm like, ah, crap, I'm not being the best version of myself right now. And it has nothing to literally do with them, but I will tell them like, this is nothing to do with you. It has something to do with completely something else. So yeah, I get headaches, or I'll lock my jaw, wake up in the middle of the night, in the morning, and my hands are in a fist, or, so I have all the symptoms of all of these. I was like, I identify with that. So.
Okay. So how are you with self-care?
Self-care, I'm pretty good. I have a corgi who not only demands, but requires a walk in the morning and a walk in the evening. A lot of the times when I'm out on my walks, I'm really just praying to Creator and just asking for a lot of like coverage to just come into my life and like help me make it through whatever is in front of me, whatever job or work or family or whatever stressors that are in my life. I just really lean on my medicine and smudge as much as I need to. And then, I will take time, and even in the shower, I know this sounds silly, but I'll be in the shower, just like praying and just like, using the water as like a moment of like, just washing away, like whatever I've done. Like, I feel like I try to not beat myself up. And like, if I'll take a shower, just be in the shower and like, not beat myself up and be like, it's okay. Everybody stumbles, everybody gets mad, just like forgive myself. And then at the end, I blast myself with really, really cold water, which is always like, makes me like laugh and like, holy moly, that's freezing. So yeah, I'm pretty good. I have gotten better. I'm in my 20s and 30s, definitely not, but I'm closer to 50 now. So I'm like, I better get myself together and start taking the position that I need to take in life.
Right, exactly. Well, kudos to you for being a single mom, and kudos for you for doing self-help, self-care. That's extremely important.
Yeah.
And I love it when you say that you pray to your ancestors all the time. I do the same thing. Are you allowed to smudge at work?
Well, I work from home, so I smudge anytime I want.
Yeah, same here. Yeah,
Yeah.
I smudge 20, 30 times a day. I know some organizations allow smudging in the facility, and some don't. So it's just out of curious, is there smudging allowed in your organization? I see Justin shaking his head. Any other show of hands? Oh, okay, so quite a few people allow smudging. That's awesome. And it's encouraged.
I'll have a candle
awesome.
going if I'm like really, and if I know if I'm going into a really strong meeting or having something that I know I maybe have bad feelings towards like an individual or just really a moment of like, I'm really struggling, I'll have a candle, I'll pray before and like protect myself and like protect them and just allow the meeting to go well, or just whatever I'm out. If I leave my house, I'll light a candle and just before I leave or, whatever, and brush myself off and just be like, really ask for prayers for that moment. Because for me, a lot of my physical, well, not a lot of it, all of my physical, and it's all based on my spiritual health, right? If my spiritual health, if I'm right with things, then I can tend to like get through most things quickly. And when
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, when I come off track, I notice I'm like, ooh, I'm not okay. I'm like off track. So.
Right. And I noticed too, when you do something intentional like smudging or praying before a meeting, or whatever you do to make your meetings better, I think that's, if you do it religiously, then it keeps you stable and it keeps you sane, basically. Because I know for me, if I'm going into a meeting, I might get ready to walk into the meeting and say, oh, shoot, I forgot to smudge. Knowing that I need to do that in order to make the meeting go smoother. So that's really good. Thank you for sharing, Vanessa. I really appreciate your feedback. Does anybody else want to come off and share about how these common responses affect your life?
This is Carol. I'll go.
Hi,
If my-
Carol.
and I see my coworkers on here. I see Justin, Jason, Lula. But I really didn't know how my body was reacting to my stress until I went in for a routine EKG. I put my bunion surgery on a back burner because of COVID. And so I needed a medical clearance to get a surgery, and they did an EKG and they found some heart issues in there. And so as a result, I'm told to take things slow and start like forcing myself to take self-care, like relaxing or eating better, or just drinking more water. So I just have to learn how to do self-care with baby steps again.
Right, right. So self-care is extremely important. It can definitely make or break you, that's for sure. So Carol, when you're doing too much, you said slow down. For some people who move all the time, it's kind of hard to define slow down. Do you know what your doctors meant by slow down?
Well, let's see. I work full-time here at the Kansas City Indian Center. And on my other hat that I wear is that I'm an elected official for my school district. It's the 7th largest district in Kansas. So that's what I do on the other side. Then there's a few other organizations that I'm involved with. So yeah, I mean, but I love my advocacy work. So I need to learn to figure out which ones to put on the back burner.
Okay. Are you learning to do that, or are your friends helping you decide what to prioritize?
My friends, my coworkers, or my brothers and sisters, they're helping me out. Like, doing too much. So I'm learning.
That's
Like
good.
Justin will say, "Oh, come in the office and harass me." I'll say, "Let's walk the clock," but go walking. We do enjoy walks with the office when it's not 100 degrees. Go walking as a group.
Well, that's good that you have a coworker that'll come call you on it and say, hey, take a break. Let's go on a walk. That's good. Good for you, Justin. Keep her in check. Okay, does anybody have anything else they would like to share about how these common responses affect your real life?
I would like to share. My name is Althea Stevenson, and I'm from Farmington, New Mexico. I work with San Juan County Partnership in their housing program, as well as their health equity program. When COVID first hit, that was of March, we stopped going to the office. And for my job was like doing a lot of resources. I would pick up resources, drop off whatever resources that anybody needed, and it was like diapers, wipes, and so forth for the community. So I had to have all those packages delivered to my house, but then the post office wasn't ready for it. So there was a lot of issues that I had to work through. And then, it finally gave us a leeway to go back to the office, went back to the office. But in the long run, what I realized about that was I got so mixed up on my days. My nights turned into days, my days turned into nights, and I just was like going crazy. And to this day, I still don't have a normal sleeping pattern. I try to go to bed early, but I can't. I'm usually in bed by 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And by the time I get up, I am so exhausted and tired. So, I've been trying to work on it. But I've been doing good. Self-care that I've been doing, like I said, I try to take small naps here and there. I try not to take long naps. Because I feel like, if I take a longer nap, then yeah, it's going to keep me up at night. But no matter what I do, it's like when 9 o'clock hits, I try to lay down, nothing. So that's, learning to do re-steps. My children, both my boys, same issue. So school's getting ready to start. And so we need to start shutting everything off probably by 7 and getting up early and going to work. But it's just like it's a slow process. It's been what, 2 years now since it's
Right.
past COVID, but it's like I'm still working on it, taking care of myself as in drinking water, trying to eat healthy, try not to sleep during the day, and just trying to keep myself busy. And that's one of the hardest things for me to do, is just keeping busy. And that's
Alita, are you still at home, or are you working both?
So I go both. On some days I'll work from home, and then on some days I'll go into the office, or on some days I'm out in the community, attending meetings and so forth. But when especially with working from home during COVID, it was like my office hours got mixed up with my home hours got mixed up with my office hours, and I was cooking throughout the day and working throughout the night, and I'm like, okay, we gotta do something. So I had to put myself on a schedule. Well, from 9 o'clock to 3 is work, and that's it. And then from 3 it's home life, so I really had to split them apart.
Right, and I think that's a common response to the people who were working in an office and then had to go home to work. So many of us have not worked from remotely, so we needed to make an office in our home. We needed to have boundaries. I think sometimes we find ourselves sending an email at 10 p.m. When we should be focusing on our personal time rather than work time. So there's a lot of change that happened, wasn't there, with the COVID?
So I catch a lot of my coworkers sending emails out at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and then the next day I'll be like, what were you doing up? And they're like, Althea, you're worse at this. And I'm like, I know, but I'm going to catch you on it. So that's what we've been helping each other do.
That's good.
What were you doing? Go to sleep, etc. So yeah.
Well, in just a minute, we're going to talk about a model that you can do with your coworkers in keeping everybody in check and on a schedule, and making sure that you're doing self-help. So we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes here. Does anybody else want to, and thank you, Alita, for sharing. I appreciate that. Does anybody else want to share about how the common responses deal with your real life? Okay, we're going to go to the next slide. We're going to take a quick break. So we've been talking about the problems. So we've been identifying problems, talking about the problems, and now we're going to give you a 5-minute break to kind of breathe and transition. So now we're going to talk about how we're going to fix things, and the strength-based approach of with compassion fatigue, because there is help. There's good news, there's help, and we're gonna learn about that. So just take 5 minutes, turn off your camera, step away from your desk, go get a cup of coffee, run around your office, do whatever, but we're just gonna take 5-minute break here so you can transition into how to fix this. We'll be back in 5 minutes. So 11:48. Oh, I'm on Pacific time, so I have 11:48. Okay, we're going to come back from our break. I hope everybody was able to get up away from your computer and run around for a minute. So we've talked about the problem. We've talked about identifying responses. We've talked about what compassion fatigue looks like. We've talked about we've talked about everything as far as identification. Now let's talk about what we can do to help. Could we have the, thank you. So we're going to talk about how can we stop compassion fatigue from happening? I mean, obviously there's some that's going to happen because stress, again, is part of our job, and we are going to deal with it. I mean, it's going to happen. How can we recover from it? And what tools are available? So we're going to talk about a little bit about connection and purpose, and we're going to talk about the good news. So the good news is we can recover through resiliency. But resilience is something that needs to be intentional. It needs to be taught intentional. It needs to be practiced intentional, and it can be developed for anyone. One of the things that I think about when somebody talks about resiliency, I know, again, American Indian, Native, Alaska Native people are resilient people. We know that. But one of the examples of resiliency that I can find that it's easy to interpret is a football player. Football players playing football in front of millions of people on Sunday during Sunday day football, and they fall down, they get knocked down. They have to get back up, and they have taught themselves to get back up and to continue playing their game no matter that they got knocked down. To me, that's a good example of resiliency. We can increase resiliency by the way we practice it. We can focus on resiliency by developing in our connections, whether it be social media, our family members, our coworkers, you know, and focusing on small connections, whether it be big or small, is extremely important. Isolating was good for some people, was not good for a lot of people, and that increased our compassion fatigue. So it's also going to increase our resolution to that. We want to become flexible. So, and all of that is when we talk about connection. So we want to know how do you, since the pandemic, okay, so some people are still working from home, but since the pandemic, how have you been able to maintain connections with your coworkers, with your family members, of course, family members living outside of your home, but how have you been able to maintain connections? Does anybody want to share that? Carol, did you say something? Oh,
No, I
somebody
was
said
just
something.
here at the Kansas City Indian Center because we were paused for so long. And I wish he was here, but our family coordinator is out of the office, but we're starting to start back up our family culture night here for the Kansas City Indian Center. That's once a month. And it's we've had 2 of them so far, and they've been well received, and everybody's looking forward to the next one. And we're starting to get ready for our Ethnic Enrichment Festival. And that's just a good time for family members to get together and just volunteer and feel good. But personally, I mean, my own family, I'm lucky, I'm blessed because my family, we all live within 15 to 20 minutes of each other. We just check in on each other. And as a matter of fact, we trade each other's kids, and I've got my niece with me here today at work. She's in there making buttons. The other one's sewing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Vincent, you have your hand raised, sir.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. The agency I work for the past I'm starting my 4th year here currently. We never did really shut down for the pandemic, so we at least had to work for 2 days, and it's a tribal agency, so that was little funky, but that's okay. But we made it work. But the youth groups we had were all virtual, and so we tried to get creative with art, bringing in like cultural people and ceremonies, and sending the youth group members like beading materials. So they got like really nice shells and stuff they used to make bracelets, our necklaces, and then we sent them art supplies to do an art thing. So that was helpful. But you're talking about connection with family. My ceremonial family and family that I have up here where I currently live, I have family all over the country, and my tribe comes from Southern California, Santa Barbara, Ventura area. But the local family out here on the coastal corner in the Redwoods, the ceremonial family, just having ceremonies as much as you can. There was some of the ceremonies could not happen. But I remember one time vividly, which I thought was really cool, is we got all of our families together and they did a virtual bingo night. It was hilarious because people donated prizes. So they did like a bingo virtual. So all the families joined with their own computers. And so we had interactive games and had fun, and we actually sent each other prizes at the height of COVID. But I think ceremonies certainly was helpful, and talking to people. And then on a more professional level, it's all professional, I believe, but really utilizing supervision. I have a pretty good clinical supervisor I'm very blessed to have. I'm a native female licensed clinical social worker, so I'm very blessed to have that in my life. For supervision is so key to help you.
Right. Having a good working team, your coworkers, that can make or break someone's life. I'm sure think that almost everybody can agree with me. Having a good workers, like having Justin check in on Carol to do her walks and stuff, having somebody to do that and to make sure that they take care of you, have each other's backs, that's just huge. And you either have it or you don't, and you're blessed if you have it. So if you have it, make sure you take good care of it, because you sure are blessed to have staff that would take care of you. Having a really good supervisor too. So a supervisor that you feel comfortable going and talking to and saying, hey, I'm struggling right now, or hey, I feel like I'm doing really good right now. Give me some feedback on how you think I'm doing, because I don't know if I'm doing good or not right now. So, I mean, having that safe person to talk to, I think is extremely important. Would anybody else like to talk about how they maintain their current connections? Okay, let's move to the next slide for purpose. So I'm wondering, let me see, what would be the answer? You can, again, please feel free to come off mute and share, or you can write in chat, but what motivates you to do your job and work with other people? Does anybody want to share that? What motivates you?
I can share. I think what motivates me the most is just when, like, my students, like, obviously, but more specifically, like, when they express like their gratitude towards like me and me helping them. That's what really like pushes me like to do my job, and just like knowing that like I'm doing enough, like just by showing up and meeting with them and whatnot. Like that's what it's all about, and that's what pushes me.
Awesome. Yeah, if people appreciate you, that's definitely a plus, isn't it, Shelby? Does anybody else want to share what motivates you doing your job? Why do you come to work every day? I know it's not just for the paycheck. What do you come to work for?
This is Carol. I come for being around other natives, my own affinity space.
Amen.
I left the Kansas City VA because they had something called Red Friday. It wasn't a good fit. But I like being around other natives. Plain and simple, and I don't have to explain why I'm smudging off. I mean, it's fantastic.
Right.
It's like what agency where I worked as a rape crisis center, and it was largely so-called white liberal women, and it just
Right. Right. You have to convince people that you're not smudging weed when you're smudging. I've been accused of before in the past when I've smudged, I've said, are you doing weed in the office? You know, because people have that lack of knowledge. They don't know what smudging is, which I think is a shame, because it's a big blessing to be able to smudge and understand what you're smudging for. Vanessa, were you going to share something? You kind of lit up for a minute.
No, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Does anybody else want to share what motivates them to come to work every day? Nobody
Well,
else wants to share.
we talk about, company culture or work culture, but we all call each other brother and sister here at the Indian Center, and we have family lunch every day together. And today, one of our coworkers, Jason, treated us to, he grilled the hamburgers and hot dogs, corn on the cob.
Oh,
But there's
wow. And you guys do that every day?
not cookout, but we have lunch together every day. If I'm not working too hard, someone will pull me out of my office and make me stop and eat lunch.
Boy, you have really good staff. They pull you out of your office to walk. They pull you out of your office to eat. I mean, it seems like you're in a perfect situation there, Carol.
And they kick me out of here sometimes too. They tell me to turn the lights off on me.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. I mean, your staff is pretty special, it seems like. So when you talk about what motivates you, is that what also brings joy and satisfaction, Carol, to your job, is being able to work with natives every day and having staff that care about you?
Absolutely, 1000%. And there's other things too that are, just within our culture. Like I'm the behavioral health specialist here, but there's different things that I do that I don't have to explain to people. Say, as a female practitioner, a therapist, I even know how to I will position my legs away from the client, because we as women, we have a lot of power. They make jokes about it on Res Dogs, the movie with the IHS conference, but there's a lot of power that we have as women.
Right.
And so when you're sitting there with the client, your legs are open, or you're facing them, we absorb the energy or whatever comes up into our bodies. I just even know to turn myself away to protect myself, or them, we protect each other, things like that. I don't have to explain to my coworkers.
Right. Always keep yourself tilted so that you don't accept that energy. That's true.
Yep.
And it's good that people know, that, like you say, you don't have to explain, you don't have to ask, you don't have to explain. It's just common sense in that office, it sounds like. Okay, so let's talk about flexibility and adaptability. Pre-pandemic versus now, because I think that those of us who had to work from home and who are still working from home, we had to adjust a lot of physical space that was probably like, whoa, what can we do here? Because I know for me, I had to section out a piece of my house that's specifically for my office, and that the way I practiced business was different, because I needed to leave my office at 5 o'clock so I could go into my house part to cook dinner for my family and my kids and everything. So, we had to adjust a lot as far as physical space. So how did you have to adjust for physical space, or did any of you have to adjust physical space when you moved into isolation? Anybody want to talk about your experience in that encounter?
Hello, my name is Macrina, and I'm a CHW. And unfortunately, we're one of the ones that didn't get to go home and to work into our own spaces. We had to work out of our office. And so it was a little bit more quieter at our building because not everybody was working, and So I kind of appreciated it during COVID because a lot of the times we were being exposed and, you know, we could kind of change our clothing from our work clothing to our home clothing and get back into our home space. And, you know, the family was there and the kids were, you know, are the ones that kind of had to adjust working from, you know, working school from home. And I think that was a huge, it was really hard for them because, you know, sometimes it's harder to learn online than in class in person. And just really appreciate now that we're able to go back into that in-person learning, you know, trainings, conferences, and I'm thankful that we're kind of, you know, we're not out of the woods yet. We still have COVID cases, but at least we're, you know, at least we're 90% out of there.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for sharing, Macrina. Does anybody else would like to share about how you had to adjust your physical space? To some people, adjusting physical space could be very traumatic, especially young people. We need to think about our kids who didn't go to school for 2 years and how they were at home. You know, some people say that, oh, my child studied harder than what they would in the classroom, but unfortunately, my kids weren't one of those. I don't think my kids studied as much as they should have during those 2 years out. So I wonder about their development later on. But you know, we forget sometimes about our families having to go through physical space adjustments. You know, somebody might have gotten their playroom taken away so mom could have her office or whatever. So we have to think about our family's physical space as well. So since recently, work demands have changed, times have changed, places have changed. Some are remote, some are in the office. But how do you discrete and clear, make yourself have clear breaks and boundaries? Excuse me. So we talked about earlier, some people, you might catch a coworker texting or hopefully not texting, but emailing you at 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night. And then you might have that be that kind of person. Oh, I wonder if so-and-so replied to my email. So I'm going to run to my computer at 10 o'clock at night to check my emails. How many of you guys do that? Can I have a show of hands? Who have no clear boundaries? Okay, so I'm seeing quite a few hands. So we need to talk about this. Boundaries, 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 boundaries. So when you have your time, when it's time to go home at 5 o'clock, you should go home at 5 o'clock and do your best not to go back and check on the computer. I know it's hard, but you need that time to decompress, and you need that time to do self-help. And we're going to talk about a model here in just a minute that you can use. Macrina, did you want to share?
No, I was just raising my hand for that. The one that goes back and checks emails. I don't know how to clear that.
Seems like a lot of people. Have you tried to stop that?
Oh, there I go. Thank you. Sorry.
Macrina, have you tried to stop checking your emails at 10 o'clock at night?
No, because the only thing is I have my work phone, and my work phone is going off like, you know, all the time. And if I see it beeping, then I'm like, I just have to see what's going on, you know, and even try and like stop. And I carry it like all weekend long. And it's just like, because sometimes we're just on call, and it's like, when do I learn how to just stop it and put it away and, you know, just completely turn off my phone, I guess is my only way.
So you're not on call every weekend?
No, I'm not.
But you still carry the phone?
Yes. Yeah, bad habit.
Does that spell a concern for you?
Yeah, it did, because after COVID, I was, completely burnt out. And I had to take a little sabbatical from work, and which was nice because I recovered and I came back and I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna put myself in that same position where I went to burnout. And I'm slowly starting to reach that point again. So I'm like trying to take everything just to pull back and not overwhelm myself.
Right. That was a struggle when I was doing social work, and I had a client, I had about 100 on my caseload. And I was not on call every weekend, but I would carry that phone call because I was so afraid something was going to happen that I needed to take care of, that I'm going to take that phone all the time. And then I reached burnt out, and I thought, I need to make some changes here, because clearly I am not in a position to stop on my own. This is like an addiction, that I've got that cell phone with me, and I'm so afraid it's going to beep that I was carrying it all the time. And I finally had to just surrender my phone. Our supervisor was the best supervisor, and she would make us surrender our phones on Friday afternoon if we weren't on call. And so she forced us to break that habit, and I really appreciated that support on that, because I don't think I could have ever broken that by myself, because I was so adamant that something was going to happen that I needed to take care of, that I specifically needed to take care of, not the on-call person, because all the calls went into the on-call phone over the weekend. But that kind of support was really good. So maybe if you have someone at your job, you don't work for Kansas City, do you? They seem to be really supportive. So somebody could take away your phone. So, it would be maybe a coworker could help you remind yourself, if you're not on call this weekend, you just surrender your phone and leave your phone at your desk when you go away for the weekend, and try that. That might work.
That sounds like a great idea. And my coworker does that all the time. Like, as soon as he's off, he just turns off his phone, and it's like, no worry until Monday morning at 8 o'clock, when the phone goes back on. And I don't know why. I think it's just coming out of COVID, and, because we have our vehicles are at home, and our car, our phone, and we were just always like ready for anything that was about to happen. And
Right.
I don't think my supervisor really has taken that into consideration to tell me, oh yeah, Macrina, you should just shut off your phone as soon as, then do the work day. And I don't know why I just need to do that too.
Right. That's definitely a good self-help practice. So when we're going to actually, this next slide, we're going to skip this hope slide so we can go to the rest model for time, to take in consideration of time, because this rest model is extremely important. So for the rest model, this is a really good self-help tool that you can use to help yourself to combat stress, to combat compassion fatigue, and of course to combat burnout. So this rest model is reward, establish, share, and trust. So reward, it talks about rewarding ourselves for a job well done. Like we need to build reinforcements into our job. Like how many of you currently have a reward system set up where you might treat yourself to a latte, or you might treat yourself to a nice meal, or to get your nails done, or to go do something? How many of you are rewarding yourself on a constant basis? Anybody? Carol, I see your hand up. Macrina, does anybody want to share what you do to reward yourself?
Yeah, this is Carol. I do beadwork.
Yeah, but you said that. That's a wonderful reward.
Yeah, but the other part is too, I notice when I get irritable and edgy when I don't get to do my beadwork. I get resentful.
It's definitely therapeutic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely therapeutic. Does anybody else want to share how you reward? I think, let's see, I'm going to call on some people that raised their hand. Louis, you raised your hand. What do you do to reward yourself? Oh, maybe he's not here. Oh, okay. So you said you usually go get a pop or something like that. That's a really good reward. That's something that can be done constantly, you know, and it could be build a good reinforcement for yourself. So here we go talking about establishing healthy boundaries again, that when you're off duty, you stick to that boundary. So if you can prevent going into your office, your home office at night, or getting on your phone at 10 o'clock at night, try to do your best to put your phone up, turn it off, make it an extra step, not just put it down, but if you turn it off, then that's another step you have to get to turn on your phone. And you might want to think about, oh, well, maybe I don't want to check my phone. But make sure that you keep a healthy boundary of work. You want to make sure you have your personal time for your personal, and that you stick to that boundary so that you can have some peace and some self-help time. We want to share feelings, concerns, and stories. I saw earlier people are participating more in groups. You're having beading sessions, you're smudging, you're having support groups, you're having cultural nights and things like that is very, very healthy, very stimulating, very good for your connections. It's a good activity in your life. And it's good that many of you are practicing community connections. And then trust your support network. Reach out to as many people as needed. If somebody comes to you and asks for help, for example, if Carol's working all the time and she's overworking and I come and ask her for help, hopefully Carol is in a position where she can say, look, I'm too tired right now today, or today's not a good day. Can we talk tomorrow? That she would feel comfortable in referring me. You don't want to be emotionally compromised and have to help someone, because you're not at your best person if you're emotionally compromised. So you want to make sure that you have support. So with this REST model, the reward, establish, share, and trust, this is a really good model to beat compassion fatigue, because you're taking care of yourself. You're remembering to reinforce your work, establishing healthy boundaries, sharing your feelings, especially again, if you have a safe person at work that you can go and share your feelings to and your stories. We want to make sure that that happens. And trust where you're at. Anybody have any questions about this? Or want some better guidance? Is this everybody good with this model? Do you understand it? Okay, and then the importance of self-care. We're going to the next slide. So what does self-care look like to you? How many do you currently practice self-care? So if you could come off mute and tell me what you do for self-care, or you can type it into the chat. We'll get some examples. Some of the examples that I wrote up there is taking a walk, maybe taking a bath, a long bath, meditation, which we're going to talk about meditation here in just a minute. Listening to music, you know, there's a lot of really good apps out there. I listen to Calm, the Calm app a lot. And that helps me just chill and practice self-care, maybe going and getting a massage. So I see all kinds of different examples in here, taking a shower, watching TV, allow myself to be lazy. That's really good, because sometimes we just need to be able to just chill. And somebody took a vacation and went hiking in the mountains. That sounds lovely. Getting nails done every month. Eating some good fry bread. Lula, do you make your fry bread? That's a really good one. Taking a nap, attending ceremony. I'm sorry, somebody was talking.
I think one for me too is I go take care of a friend's lawn. She can't mow it. So my husband and I will go over there and take care of her yard. It's good for our marriage and ourselves.
Oh, that's good. That's good. How many of you asked? Oh, sorry, somebody else was going to say something.
So close. I know yesterday I thought Lula was cute.
Okay, so Carol, were you speaking?
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay, so we talk about self-care. So how many of you meditate? I see hands. I see lots of hands. Okay, that's good. So we're going to walk through a meditation here really quick. Of course, meditation is something that could be done anywhere. You could do it absolutely anywhere. And I have a tendency to do it at my desk several times a day just to clear the air. Like maybe after a meeting, I want to meditate to clear my mind and everything through this. So we're going to, meditation is something that you can do anywhere. You can do it to music, you can do it silently. It just depends on what you want to do. You could really make it to whatever you want. I listen to a app commonly called Calm, C-A-L-M. It's free. Excuse me, it's free. And it plays different kinds of music. They have drumming music, they have rain, they have thunder, they have lightning, they have anything that you want to, anything that you want to listen to, they have it. So for those of you who don't know how to meditate, I'm just going to explain it to you really quick. So when I meditate, this is what I do. When I meditate, I sit in my chair with my feet on the ground, and I make sure my ears, my hip, and my shoulder are all aligned in one line. And then I sit in my chair with my palms up. I close my eyes. I think about what it is I want to clear the air on. And then once I do that, I'm closing my eyes, and then I'm breathing in through my nose. I watch the air go all the way to my belly. And then I let my air out slowly. And then I redo that. And what that does, it gives us the chance to clear the air through our brains, and it gives us a new uptake in air. So it will help us. It will decrease anxiety. It will calm us down. It will help us refocus. And it'll give us a moment to gather ourselves so we can move on and continue on our next thing. So again, you're going to sit with your palms up, breathe in through your nose, watch the air go all the way down to your belly, and then slowly release it through your mouth, and do that about 5 or 6 times. It might take 5 minutes max, but it'll definitely work for you. I promise. I use it constantly. Okay, so in review, it's like, I'm curious to know, what information are you taking away from this training today? Did you learn anything? Have you found a different way to do self-help? What are people taking away from them?
I think it's just good to know that like there are other people like who are experiencing the same thing, because when I first saw this training, I like read the description and I was like, oh my gosh, like this put into words like what I was feeling at work. And like for a long time, like I was feeling guilty for feeling the way that I did, because like obviously like I want to be there for like my students and everything, but the reality of it is it's just like a lot of like it's very hard sometimes to carry like the stories that they share, because they like trust us and things like that. So like for a long time I was feeling guilty about it, but it was just good to like put into words exactly like what I was feeling, and like there's actually like terms for it and stuff like that.
Right, and I think it's important, you know, in our next slide, we have our in conclusion. You need to make sure that you definitely understand that you're not alone. There's a lot of people that have this. We don't talk about it. A lot of people don't talk about it, so we don't discuss it as much, but you're not alone. Many people are walking this path right now, and it's very important to do good self-care practice. This is an ongoing process. You need to practice this intentionally. Self-care is not something that's going to come automatically. It's just, you're going to have to practice it. You're going to have to make sure that you are very intentional about taking care of yourself, whether it be taking a nap or attending a ceremony, or just allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Lewis had said that, you know, he needs to allow himself to be vulnerable and ask for help. We need to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say, I'm struggling right now with my workload. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say, I'm really stressed right now. I'm not sleeping. But most importantly, make sure you take care of yourself, but call your coworkers on it too. If you see a coworker that's acting a little strange, like saying they're talking about that they can't sleep at night, they're having problems with their job, help them. Try to help them, give them ideas on self-care, because self-care really works. And I want to thank you guys all for coming today. I hope that you have found this training beneficial. I feel that I hope that you're walking away feeling more comfortable in self-care techniques. And I have, if anybody's interested, I do have a workbook on compassion fatigue that gives you some examples on self-help techniques. And if anybody's interested in that workbook, just send me an email and I'll be happy to send you out that workbook. So I am going to put my email in the chat. So if you feel like you want to get some further information regarding compassion fatigue, just let me know. There's my email right there, and I'll be happy to send you a workbook. One of my favorite old Irish blessings is, may the road rise with you. So I want to tell you, I hope the road rises with you in your journeys. And I hope that you found that this information was given to you in a good way today.
Thank you,
Thank-
Yvonne, for that wonderful presentation. We really appreciate that. It was awesome. The floor is now open for questions or comments that the audience may have. Please feel free to come off camera, to unmute your mic and to put on your camera so you can ask Yvonne questions if anyone may have them.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this, but there's one other thing that it came up into my mind of, I don't know, because we at the Indian Center were just really close and we even protest together at the Chiefs games, and that does wear and tear on the body and the mind, but you know, we at least have each other.
Your office sounds like a true blessing, honestly. So I just am so amazed how well you guys support each other, and I hope they continue to call you on your stuff, and I hope you continue to learn what it means by scaling back so that you can take care of your health.
Same. All right, well, thank you. Go ahead. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
you.
Please remember to fill out the scanner. We need those evaluations for people who are wanting the continuing education hours. So please make sure you fill that out, because once the evaluation is complete, then they'll send you your CEUs.
Okay, will that be in the chat or in a follow-up email?
That's in this queue that's coming up right next. Right there's the code.
Yes. So this is our survey for our feedback survey. So you can let us know any comments or feedback that you may have about this session. You can scan the QR code, and I will also drop the link in the chat for everyone. But we are at time and we're not going to keep everybody much longer, but thanks everyone for joining. Thank you for attending. Thank you to Yvonne for that wonderful presentation. We really appreciate you all. We hope to see you all at future events, and we hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you once again.
Thank you.